Is it kind
of?
Hey, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. Today we're going to discuss if we knew then. If we knew then. I don't know. It's kind of a teaser. You'll find out. Like, if we knew then what we know now. But I'm sure Dave will turn it into something else, something really kind of gross and things that he wishes he didn't know or something
Probably
like
with Hitler.
Yeah. I want to know if Dave was really, really excited about Jojo Rabbit because he knew that there was a Hitler invisible friend in it, just on principle, before he knew anything about the movie.
Have you seen the movie, Dave, yet?
No, not yet.
Did they not play that in Redacted?
It was there for like a day, and then people got upset because it wasn't that movie.
Right, I was just going to say, like...
We wanted Hitler! Like Calvin Hobbes!
There are protests out there. We have a problem with the message of this movie.
Dave,
tolerance, equality.
This is not the movie advertised to me.
Dave, when you move to Austin, do you promise to bring your Hucklefuck accent with you?
Hucklefuck? That's pretty good.
Yes, I do.
I don't want you to lose that charming bit of your personality.
But then people just think I'm making fun of other Texans.
No, that's a Florida voice.
Okay.
I
don't know the Texas redneck voice.
I've lived here for 7 years. I've never heard anybody with that voice.
Well, in Austin, probably.
No, you venture out, you'll get it a little bit, but you just basically get some y'alls and stuff. It's a little different than maybe you're thinking.
We do get a lot of y'alls. There are a lot of y'alls. I happen to like the word y'all, though.
Yeah, I've embraced it. Austin doesn't like it. He has a problem with it.
Yeah, Cindy doesn't like it, and neither does Haley.
Cindy grew up in Texas, didn't she? Or I guess she grew up everywhere, but she was in Houston for a while.
But that's a good reason not to, actually.
Oh.
Usually you grow up to hate the place you're from.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Houston y'all is different from the Austin y'all.
Yeah, I like that. I like the y'all. Hers was more of a Kentucky y'all, a tobacco farm y'all.
Tobacco farming y'all. All right, so
Florida, it's y'all ain't from around here, is you?
Y'all step over here and bend over this sink for me, please.
Johnny wrote some Floridian meth heads not too long ago.
Yeah, we have to pass that to Dave for fact checking. See if I did it right.
Let's go down the street.
Dave's going to knock on the neighbor's house. Can you fact check this for me?
How close do you think you live to the nearest meth head?
Literally?
Yes.
Literally. I don't want to give too much away.
You can triangulate. So he's got the meth head tracker app.
There was a house on my street that was a fucking meth house.
For sure, for real?
Yeah.
Wow. How do you know?
They had to close it down. And
wow.
Yeah. And then when people moved in there, I was like, I wonder how, should I tell them how dangerous the house is? They're like, how many chemicals must be in that wall?
Wow. Yeah. When we moved into the ghetto mansion, I guess this is 2006. There was two sunrooms on both sides. It was like one of those old houses that had been carved up, right? So there was 5 units, but it was built to be a single family home. And so there was a sunroom on either side of the front porch. And on the one on the left-hand side, that used to be where people got their crack. It was like a drive-through window, basically. There was a window right there. And for the first month...
Did they say thank you, come again? Because that's awesome.
For the first month that we lived there, at all hours of the day, people would come up and knock on that little door. And after a while, they would just longingly look at the house, realize that it was painted pink and yellow and there were no crack, anymore. So,
did you hung a sign that said no crack.
No crack.
Out of crack.
Out of crack. Did you see that Futurama episode where everybody got a bunch of money from the government and the guy goes, he said, no cheap crack houses for me. And he goes to the crack mansion. That's kind of what I was picturing with Sean with the ghetto mansion.
Yeah, it was a lot like that, actually.
All right. So we have 2. We're actually recording 2 back to back, and I'm realizing I don't have anything cool. So I'm going to have 2 in a row unless I can think of something.
For this one.
Oh, no, I got something cool. I'll do
Go
something
ahead.
cool. All right. So mine's not a new something cool, but it's a something cool that I only
Oxygen.
saw. That's amazing. I only saw the first episode of this when it first came out, I guess 2 years ago, and the second season just dropped, and I started watching Altered Carbon. Dave, have you seen that?
I gave up on that. Is it good at the end?
I'm on episode 3. Episode 3. And it feels, first of all, if you like sci-fi, it's beautiful. It's one of the prettiest things on Netflix. It strikes me as kind of what the Wachowski should have done instead of Sense8, right? Which was like, I can at least watching this movie, or this show, I can see where they spent their money on, like Sense8 cost twice as much per episode as
Yeah, like where did that money go?
big giant vistas and shit, like scenery no one cared about and had nothing to do with the story.
It did, because they were from all around the globe and they wanted to show the expansiveness.
Yes, but you don't need to show that expanse to that expense. Right. You just don't. Like when you're watching Altered Carbon, the visuals serve the story, like they really do. Have you seen it, Dave?
I saw the first 2 episodes and I liked it a lot. And then I got distracted by whatever, and then I heard that they canceled it, but then they brought it back. I don't know. There's a weird history, but it doesn't have the same actor in the second season.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
But that doesn't matter.
It goes with the story, though.
Yeah,
because he's changed a body, right?
Right. So, like, yeah, it's Anthony.
But yeah, I will watch it, and I'm sure I'll like the second season.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see where it goes. Right now, I'm on episode 4, which is the episode I've heard from everybody. Like, a lot of people gave up on episode 4, or like it's a really brutal torture episode.
Are you talking about season 1?
Season 1, yeah.
Oh, you hadn't seen season 1 before.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I got most of the way through season 1 and I couldn't tell you why I stopped. I was just like, I don't know. Like, it was pretty. It was kind of cool. It was good ideas, but I just didn't care.
Well, I stopped after episode 1 the first time, and I was just really tired the first time, and it's not something Cindy was ever going to connect with, right? It's just like, it's too violent. It's too much of everything, right? It's really plugged in. There's gratuitous violence, gratuitous nudity, for sure. It is not for everybody, but as far as a hard sci-fi show, like, it's good. And it really reminds me of a lot of the things that we did with The Beam are in that show. I like a lot of
That's the way it felt, but God, I wish I could pin it down. I'd be interested to dissect it, or maybe I should watch it again.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you why I didn't like it. I just didn't.
Well, were you watching it with Robin?
No, I was watching it on my own.
Maybe that's it. It's just not worth the cut for time alone. Where like, there's all these things.
There's a higher bar. Maybe I don't.
Yeah. Wait, I want to see what Bonnie says. When I saw that, she says it's good, but the last episode is a little rushed. Also, there's some really violent scenes. It's a great exploration of how we would commoditize the human body if we saw them as disposable. Yeah. So that's why I'm surprised you didn't connect with it more, Johnny. And that's exactly what I would expect.
It had everything that I should have. Yeah, I don't know, the pacing and the things with the like Poe and stuff, like those I don't know what they were.
Poe.
Like, I thought he was interesting, but the whole
like
subplot.
A character you would write, though.
I know.
Yeah, no, I didn't care. I don't know why.
Yeah, I like the philosophical questions a lot. Like the whole thing where you get unlimited bodies, and there are all rules around that so that rich people basically get the best of it. But the whole thing with the neo-Catholics, and you only get one body, so you can't come back if you're Catholic. But then the cops want to, interview witnesses. They died in like something horrible. They want to bring them back long enough to at least interrogate them. But the Catholics are like, you can't do that. I just think all of that is fascinating. I think that another trope that we all love, here in the studio, and this show does really well, is how the good guys get to rewrite the history, right? So all the envoys who were like the white knights, all got destroyed by the protectorate, right? And now they're like the boogeymen of history. I just think all that stuff is really good.
The other funny thing about that one is I heard the same thing about the violence. Like, I heard it ad nauseum before I started it. And I don't know if this just means I'm totally jaded, but I was like, this is no big deal. Like, it didn't strike me at all as a problem.
There's a lot of violence.
Maybe because it's stylized violence. It's not like Eli Roth torture porn violence or something.
Yeah, it's like The Matrix, but with blood. There's a lot of it. But the torture scene, the torture episode, which I'm halfway through,
that didn't bother me either.
It strikes me as very The Beam, like what we did with the Orion. Like, there's a lot of. I'm glad I didn't see this or read the book. I actually have read the book. But I read the book because Julie Huss said it was her favorite sci-fi book of all time. So I read it. And we actually did rip something off from this. And it was the re-sleeving, but for Tomorrow Gene, right?
Had you read it?
With
You ripped it off?
no,
Okay.
I that's what I'm saying. Like if I had read this before I wrote The Beam, like there's a lot of stuff there, but it's just
Yeah, but as a storyteller, I don't know, maybe this is a weird thing to say, but it just feels like some of those conclusions, once you got into that world, felt somewhat inevitable. Not in a bad way, not like I'm criticizing the storytelling. I'm just saying that given where we started and given where this started, I'm not surprised at all that we reached the same conclusions independently.
Yeah, well, I just love those questions. And I don't know why I didn't connect with the show the first time. I just saw the one episode and I never made it further. And I'm excited by the storytelling and the visuals. But I wish that I didn't know that the last episode's rushed. That's going to bum me out. But
that worked because Sean's Something Cool took as long as the three of our Something Cool. So it worked out. It was a group.
Big shot.
All right. So today we're going to talk about if we knew then what we know now. So this is like what would you go back and tell your earlier self or something. So and how is this different from the one that we've stopped doing? This is more like lessons learned rather than pivots taken, say.
Yeah, I think it's like if you could go back in time. So we've already talked about what we've stopped doing, but what would we actually go back in time and do different? So here's a great example.
So much.
Well, Dave, this is not a black version of This Is Your Life where you just like lament about every decision you've ever made.
Not our entire lives. Oh, okay, never mind.
No, I think that the difference here is we know the things that we stopped doing, but for example, we've talked about how expensive the Smarter Artist sidetracking was, and how it would have been awesome if we had just kept writing and done that and never taken our eye off the ball. But if we did that, we wouldn't have the studio that we have, or the framework, or the structure, or all the great storytellers, all the people listening live right now. Like that wouldn't happen. So I wouldn't not do that. I would have done that anyway to get where we are right now. But I wouldn't do it again, right? Like I wouldn't start another thing like the Smarter Artist. So that's something that we know, but it would actually specifically change our behavior. So I think that's the things, like what would you actually do different?
Right. What are the it's lessons learned. So just as a simple example, and this is a little bit like what you were just saying, is the idea of really staying in our sweet spot, right? Like, because we constantly, and I realize we're hopping around a little bit, but we've always been trying to experiment or trying to sort of take something off of every piece of the buffet or something like that. And also chasing things that maybe we shouldn't have chased. So, you get that kind of shiny penny thing, and this person had a breakout in this genre. Like, we're not immune to that. We've
signing a book deal.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So here, okay, that's actually a really good one. I don't feel like that diversion was worth everything that came after it. So Smarter Artist was a diversion.
Wait, sorry. So tell the story of signing a book deal, assuming you're not, finish the Smarter Artist story, but tell the story of the book deal.
Yeah. So the Smarter Artist was a really expensive thing for us, but what we got back from it, it was more than worth it. But when Dave and I got a deal to sign with 47 North, which is a publishing arm of Amazon, which a lot of people...
Let me tell a preface of this.
Okay.
So when we started doing serials with Yesterday's Gone, nobody else was really doing it in the space. Yes, serials existed forever, but nobody was doing it. And nobody was doing it like we were doing it.
I like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yes. Fruity Pebbles. Anyway, so when we made serials work, and we called ourselves Kings of the Cereal, and we had like 6 serials out. Like, it was our thing. It was what we were known for. It's what we loved. We championed it when nobody else said you could do it. So when Amazon announced that they were going to have a serial program, like, we were excited because we thought, this was like what everybody was waiting for, and maybe they would offer it to everybody. That's what we were hoping for, that it would be something that could be distributed, anybody could use it, but it wasn't. It was their own program. And then when they had their first batch of people that they announced, I was pissed that we weren't on it. I was like, we are the fucking ones that started it, so why aren't we? And I had this envy and jealousy of the people that were on there. I was like, fuck all of them, whether I knew them or not.
Especially if he knew.
Well, I mean, I don't even remember who's on there, but
it is funny how Dave and I are becoming closer and closer in the attitude.
But it was nobody that was truly known for cereals, so we were like, what the fuck? And then they called us, and then they asked us about cereals, like they actually wanted to learn from our experience, and that was like such an acknowledgement of what we'd done.
That was before you knew that they weren't listening.
Well, I think there were people listening, but it just didn't matter because not everybody's connected. So I don't feel that they were just like glad handling us. I feel like they wanted to learn from it, but it didn't matter.
I feel like when it comes to Amazon, everybody is there to do their job and they do a good job, but the pieces don't connect. And so if you're gaming or you're banking on the pieces kind of coming together, you're going to get disappointed. I mean, it was really exciting. I think Dave and I were approaching it from different perspectives, which isn't a surprise to anybody here. I mean, for Dave there was some ego gratification there for sure,
and prestige of being traditionally published.
Yeah, but it's validation. It's like you're good enough. I didn't need that.
Thank you, Daddy.
Yeah, I didn't need that. I didn't care at all. For me, it was a business move. And it seemed very logical. Like we'd already had our best, we had an amazing day when we were deal of the day. And that just crushed it. Like, we made a lot of money in one day. And I'm like, okay, so if we sign with Amazon, we're going to get deal of the day over and over and over because it's Amazon.
We'll have a working relationship with them. And we really thought if we could help make cereals even bigger, that they would expand it to like all the people in KDP, then anybody could use the system of selling a book once and delivering many episodes to ease that pain point of buying cereals separately. So we thought it was a good move for everybody, including everybody in the author community.
Yeah, and it really wasn't. Like it was a bad move for us personally, financially, every way about it. We were already going really fast, kind of faster than anybody was going at that time. Now, I know this is a normal thing now, but the pace at which we were going back then was kind of unheard of. And Amazon was like even faster. They gave us 6 weeks to write 6 episodes of Z2134, which is our most flawed work to date, probably, given that we had 6 weeks to write 6 episodes. There you have it. And
well, no, wait a minute. You wrote an episode a week of Yesterday's Gone, didn't you?
Yes, but we had some runtime there, and it was different. It was a little bit different. And
we didn't have editors that we were dealing with, and we counted on editors catching things that we might have. It
was just a really rushed production, and yet we were publishing one a week, but we had a little bit of a runway. So
and also the other thing was they were asking us questions about like an episode 1 while we're writing episode 3 or 4, and it was just too much back and forth and confusion, and that really fucked with me anyway.
Yeah, it was difficult. Like I had already taken Dave close to the breaking point, with like how fast he could go. But even there, like we had our rhythm. Like we were in our glory days.
Glorious days.
Yeah, I would never have broken Dave. I knew how far I could push Dave and pull back, and we had a really...
Sean was a good jockey, if you could imagine him on a saddle on my back.
I mean,
every day.
Honestly, I was like, we had a great working relationship, and I knew how to get the most out of Dave, and he didn't want to disappoint me. And we were making money, and we were publishing, and we had good reviews and fans, and we talked about turning the flywheel. We were turning the hell out of that flywheel, and it seemed to me, business-wise, that partnering with Amazon would absolutely do that, but it didn't. We never got deals of the day. We did get promotion, but it was like, hey, you're $1.99 on this day with another 100 choices. Like, it was never isolated as, hey, you're a deal of the day. And they launched our second follow-up book, Monstrous, on tax day, and never mailed about it. And like, it was just the whole.
Do you remember when Amazon talked us into a year of exclusivity on something, and then we kept saying, well, when are you going to send the thing? When are you going to send the thing? And they finally sent it. And then we were like trading emails all day. Okay, where is it? Like, how many? I clicked through this link and then this. Like, we couldn't find it. Remember that? That was awesome.
It's just, it was not a good experience. And the worst thing about it wasn't the books themselves, because whatever, like, we've written our own stuff internally that didn't go anywhere. That's not a big deal. It's part of this business. But it broke our mojo. Like, it took Dave a year and a half to recover after that. All he produced after the Amazon obligations in that time was Crash, which is
pretty long. At least Crash is enormous.
Right, it's a novella, so like it's 33,000 words. Y'all.
At least the book that's been fucking me is pretty big.
Right.
Hey, but at least we sold a movie script for it that might someday never go anywhere.
That's true.
We did. Rights will revert to that in 4 years, and we can make it ourselves again. So no, but none of that was worth it. Like, I would have rather have just kept turning the flywheel with Dave, and I think we would have had a very different future together, and our catalog would look different, and our energy level would have been different the last few years. So that'd be the first one that I would say I absolutely, if I could go back in time, knowing what I know now, I would do that different.
I would do a pen name for myself.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm shocked that you didn't think of that from the beginning.
I know. I don't know why. I think because, I was a reporter. My name was already out there. I didn't really think that much about it, but I don't know. I don't know why.
What do you bet Dave got a pen name on the first day of kindergarten? And he's just been David Wright ever since. His real name is like Malcolm McJeeves or something.
If I could go back in time, I would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just as a big meta thing, it really is the flywheel turning that Sean is talking about. If you don't know what that means, we borrowed this metaphor for the 10X Author, our little book, but it's originally a Jim Collins thing is it From Good to Great, or I remember one of those books. And he talks about the need to turn the flywheel. So if you think of like a big, heavy flywheel, you're going to push like hell and it's barely going to move, and you're going to push like hell and it's barely going to move. And then eventually, like after enough of just like shoving and shoving against it, then it gets going. You barely have to tap it. And that's the idea. That's the metaphor of the flywheel. Like, you got to get that thing going. That's your career. That's your momentum. And we took our eyes off the ball several times to do something
over and
else.
over and over and over.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter what it is. It because obviously The Smarter Artist was like a 4-year diversion where it was almost that or the flywheel. So we almost stopped doing fiction for all intents and purposes to do that. But also,
what sucks is we actually never got to, with The Smarter Artist, we were never at a point where we were pushing that flywheel. Like,
no, we were pushing no flywheels. We were trying to like spin both plates, and we didn't have enough hands for it. But I mean, we took our attention off of the flywheel in a different like level of granularity when we would do the wrong genre, or just venture into something else that we didn't have reason to be in. And if I think of, it took, for me personally, by Fat Vampire book 4, that was the one where I'd, succeeded my wife's ultimatum of like, okay, well, you can only do this that long because we're going to run out of money. And that was where I was like, okay, that was the book where I got the flywheel going for me. But then we all started working together. Then I would say like Invasion was this huge, like Invasion did very, very well for us. And if we'd have just kind of kept ticking that, but we didn't. We let it go for several years. And that's really what you need to do, is to keep turning, keep pushing, keep publishing, right? Publish, repeat.
Yeah, I think Dave has a good one. I think that if Dave had a pen name, that would have helped too, because some of the times when he wasn't feeling it or wanting to try something different and experiment with something different, it would have been less precious, because right now he has everything, has his name, and it's there. And I think that would have allowed him to open up a little bit more, would have allowed him to separate from the work a little bit more, which I think would be helpful. Like those times when he was looking for momentum, you know, a pen name might have been enough distance. What's something on your end, Johnny, that like if you could go back in time, you just flat? Because I know you're like me, you're not big on regrets. You're like, whatever, it was all there for a reason.
No, I mean it's the flywheel. Like it is a catch-22 because we wouldn't have the studio if we hadn't gone to the smarter artist. But that said, it's also equally true that the smarter artist it didn't kill our fiction because we're still doing it, but it really put an enormous roadblock in front of it. And that's really, that's the simplest thing. I would just keep doing what was working, but in one form or another, we always stopped doing what was working because there was this other shiny thing over there. Even within the smarter artist, even within fiction, we were always trying to do something else.
Yeah, there was, I can think
genre hopping.
Well, genre hopping, I was just going to give that as an example, maybe a counterexample, because I want that personally, but maybe there was a better way to do it.
Yeah, we would have been more strategic. That's something for sure. I would say going back in time, knowing, because that's the question, right? If we knew then what we know now, what would we do different? So I think that we were born to genre hop. I don't think we ever would have not done that, but I think we could have been more practical. So for example,
1 a year.
Yeah, like we could have done,
or just setting expectations. Like if we'd have known, so our framing with Realm and Sands, the stuff that Sean and I write, is we say it's like Michael Crichton meets Christopher Nolan. And even just knowing that, even just being able to tell our people that it's kind of that vibe, or that we've also used inquisitive fiction, so asking like big themes and stuff, even if we knew that, that would have brought unity to what felt scattershot. And we would have done things like when we released the comedies, that's too far afield. Like that doesn't fit in inquisitive fiction or Nolan and Crichton, so we should have done that under a pen name.
That should have been a pen name for sure from the beginning. I would have handled, I would have handled all of our erotica differently, like all of that. So, because remember when we tried to write adult video and call that erotica, like that's ridiculous. So,
well, there was a certain amount of like, I've always said that entrepreneurs need to be a little bit ignorant that they can't or shouldn't do things, because that's how amazing things happen. Like, oh, I can't form this company that does this thing. Too late. I already did it. And so that's the positive side of it. But the flip side is, if you aren't careful, you can end up screwing yourself.
Well, adult video is still to this day, 10 years later, one of my favorite things I've ever been involved with. I just think it is so funny. It makes me so happy. But it's not like, it doesn't even live anywhere. It's unpublished.
It's obvious that doesn't work, because so for those of you who don't know, adult video is, in Sean and my opinion, it's the funniest thing that we've ever written. And in my opinion, it's one of the funniest things I've ever read, but of course I'm going to say that. But it was originally extremely explicit and was meant to go for an erotica audience. And so you look back and you go, okay, that's really, really, really clear that there was no reader for that. Because the people who want the funny, like, why is there this really explicit sex scene in here? Like really explicit. And for the people who wanted erotica, it's like, well, I can't get off to this. There's too many jokes. So like, who was that satisfying?
Us. Right. But actually it wasn't, because we wouldn't have had the explicit sex scene in there. That's the whole point. Like, it was about the jokes for us. It was about the setting and the characters and the punchline. We didn't actually need a sex scene in there. But because we were trying to satisfy genre very poorly, I might add, we would have these like obligatory scenes just kind of shoved in, and they never really made sense.
Literally.
Yeah.
Well, it was cart before the horse. It's we know where this needs, we know what audience we have. So let's try to write this cool, interesting thing for that audience, rather than like, we should have outlined a project and then said, what can we do with this? Or should we do it at all? Or something like that.
Yeah. And that really was, we started making some mistakes. So for those of you who don't know, we originally had an erotica author, Lexi Maxwell, and it was a whole line, and there was, the super short, super dirty stories, but they were really effective. And that author made money. Like, that line made money in its day. And then there was a Lexi for a while, and then Lexi stopped working. Actually, Lexi was just really, really flaky. And Johnny and I took over the line. So Dave and I worked on some. We had stuff like the XXX files that were very Dave and
I am proud of that. and Bitten.
And Bitten, right?
And Call of Booty. I think that was the best
Call of
thing we've
Duty
ever
Modern
written.
Warfare. But would you have? I mean, I'm assuming you're serious that you actually enjoyed it. If you did, do you wish that like some of the really super explicit stuff hadn't been in it, had been more purely, I don't know, like edgy?
Well, for not Call of Booty, I was kidding about that, but
Yeah, I figured.
for Cursed and Bitten, yeah, I wanted to write them up as, dark, romantic, supernatural stories.
But they were super explicit because that's what the author promised. And so that always did really well. But we tanked that author when Johnny and I took over and changed the formula on the reader. So the reader before, it was erotica, which meant it came sex first, story second. And I think our storytelling was really strong considering it was erotica, but it was still
Didn't need to be.
It was still sex first, right? And as soon as we switched that, and Johnny and I were like, okay, well, we're trying to elevate it according to us. But the audience was like, we didn't ask for elevation, bitches. Like we had a product that
we became like that porn that you rent where like there's 20 minutes of story before they get to anything. You're like, well, you guys, this isn't why I rented this.
Well, for me, the porn part of it always felt like it cheapened the story. I felt like I was watching one of those old Skinamax movies, like where
But
it was
you-
trying
that- you
it was
are,
trying to be
that's-
one. Yeah, I don't like that.
Well, it cheapened it like a motherfucker. There was one episode in particular of adult video that I remember finishing and going,
It was the one
"Oh,
with Brian.
Yeah,
Brian
I
the
didn't-
boss.
I'm like, I didn't. There's no sex scene in this. Like, I need to get one in. So I like totally shoehorned something in. At the end, I was like, well, they can just go to the back room and fuck. Like, it just okay.
Yes,
It doesn't have anything to
so
do with the
the
story.
episode, I remember this episode. The episode is totally over, and Johnny realizes that there's no sex scene, and so our reader's going to be upset because all there are is like 1,000 punchlines.
But I was satisfied. Like my job was done. It was funny.
And so the owner of Happy Endings, the adult video store, comes in and to check on his employees, and Heather, one of the employees, has to distract him by giving him a blowjob and fucking him in the back room so that like everybody was dumb. Like it was so dumb. It was just so stupid. But we kept carrying that over and over because we took a profitable line which was no longer profitable because we started telling all kinds of stories. Like it wasn't just adult video. It was
LaFleur, which was like so the opposite of erotic.
That's as far as we got. Like that's basically women's fiction, and there is I think 2 sex scenes in it, and they're very, very mild.
And they were unnecessary. When I revised it, I took most of the explicit stuff out.
And like that's that, but that was the same author, so we had really, really drifted, and there's no reason for that. Like I love that book actually, LaFleur.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
But it doesn't belong with that author name at all, and we wasted a lot of time trying to make that author into something, and we just have enough information now to not make any of those mistakes. But Johnny and I we got stupid again with erotica like a couple years later, where there were a lot of people making money doing something a very certain way, but the problem is I think what we know now is that we're like not capable of selling out in that way. We would if we could. But like when Johnny and I went back and we're like, okay, we have to write this very specific erotica, we really couldn't do it.
Right. We had the gut check. We had the realization of, oh, this needs to be this. We want our hot side hot and the cool side cool, like the old McDLT. Like, right, don't mix that shit. And then knowing that, very focused, we did it again.
Yes.
You got your chocolate in my peanut butter.
We were only
chocolate. That's shit.
We were only writing shorts. That's all they were, and they were keyword-driven shorts. And Johnny was writing the rough drafts, and they had character. Like they had backstory. They were just way too complicated.
I didn't believe the cardboard characters that a lot of the readers of the genre seem to want.
That's what
like,
they want.
She's the slutty girl. He's the hot guy. Like that's all they wanted. Don't give me backstory, but we gave him backstory.
We gave him backstory. And so and it's not even like that took us longer, because for both the way Johnny and I write, we've come to realize it's actually easier to write something that is more complicated that we understand and can relate to than something that is just supposedly simpler, but takes more of our brain processing power because we don't connect with it. And so there's a higher cognitive load just by the by the fact that we have to spend more time thinking about how to deliver that. So Johnny would write these, character based, it was like, I don't know, one of them was like, I don't know, a girl in the back of a bar after work, and there's like 5 dudes, and like everybody has a story. And it's just like, there's too much story.
Get to the fucking already.
But no, it was.
I hope that the people who really didn't like our swearing last time are listening to this episode. They'll probably dig that. By the way, I'll mention this podcast has the explicit tag. I'll just throw that out there.
Yes, it does.
What about the business in general? So what about and I would say let's kind of couch this, because our business is very different from other people, but the author business in general, biggest lessons learned before we close out.
I would have absolutely. Again, this is the same thing over and over, but I would have kept with that flywheel. I would have been more diligent about asking the audience what they wanted and then responding specifically to that and not breaking any promises. So I don't think I would have done a lot of ad stuff. Like I wouldn't, if I was a solo author for sure, I didn't have like an ads team or anything, I wouldn't worry about ads. I would worry about connecting with every single reader that I could and really listening to them and paying attention to the reviews and, treating every reader as though like, oh my God, that reader, basically treating every reader like they're worth 10 readers, or 100 readers. And that really does add up over time. And I feel really fortunate that we were there at the beginning. And I could see that with Dave when we would publish every week and we would get more reviews every week than the week before, and not just on books but on single episodes. I can't imagine getting reviews on single episodes now. Like, the market is just so crowded and everybody's asking for reviews and everybody is,
unless you had a really awesome bond with your readers ahead of time.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that I saw what it could be, and that we've had 8 assorted years of a lot of mistakes and a lot of learning. And I feel like, especially in the last couple of months, it just feels like we're all stronger than ever. So I like having these conversations and thinking about what I would do differently, because it keeps us, I think, really focused on doing the right things now.
I would just say, and this is a vague sort of way to describe it, but I would have just tried to be more rational and sane. So here's what I mean by that. I was going to say slow down. But that's not actually true either, because there were times when we really needed to put the pedal to the metal and just use the momentum that was sort of natural within us, right? Like that fire. But I think that being aware that producing a ton of books without any checking in with the audience and getting the pulse of it, and there were times when maybe we should have spent more time with individual people who emailed us rather than, because there was a time when like we had somebody internally who convinced us to basically make it a lot harder for people to contact us because, well, we were getting distracted and we had a bunch of people contacting us.
Yeah, that was a bad move.
It was a bad move. I think that really, like, one of the things that I've done is, because I basically kind of run the Platt and Truant list at this point, well, it's too boring of a story to go into, but I've been going back and saying just,
You're trying to set an example for Dave.
Well, I want all the replies to come to me, because that was the sort of thing we used to just say.
I've always done that.
And just really try to, because it's real easy to think in terms of algorithms and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's people. And we have one of our authors has recently really started getting on that, like every so often publishing a book, like that flywheel is turning. And the asset that she has is this really super devoted fan base, which is, the opposite of just playing pure algorithms and not having anything at all. So when you were talking about getting reviews on individual episodes, she could do that if she had individual episodes, because those people are just like, she spent the time to build that list.
She for sure could. Yeah. And that is it. It's about the bond. So I think, how would I spend most of my time if I could go back and do this from the very beginning? Same way overall, less distractions for sure, but I would still have such a focus on craft. I feel like that's where, a lot of indies
and reader journey, right? Like, don't give readers whiplash. We We would go from one thing to another like this, but more egregiously, we would never prepare them. We would never give them a context to put it in. It was just like, here's hard sci-fi, now here's comedy, boom, no explanation.
Yeah, and if you like, I wouldn't. I mean, I love that we did that piloting thing, but if we were going to do that again, if we could go back in time, I would say let's do those same 6 pilots over an 18-month period.
Or silo it, like do the pilots, but don't release them until we had a plan for it or something.
Because all that does is it treats your readers not to trust you. Like, oh my God, they're just because
not to trust you. And what's the experience? Like, we did 6 pilots. You find one that you like, and then you have to wait forever for it to be closed.
Yeah, it was wrong. You and I did it wrong by giving our readers whiplash, and Dave and I did it wrong by not following through on the things we would promise. And both of those are terrible.
Yeah.
Right? It's just terrible. Like, that's not how you get readers. It's how you lose them. So I still would. It's craft. I think anytime you can get better, that's what allows you to stick around longer. You see a lot of people who sell books, but then the algorithms change and they can't sell books and they can never sell books again because they got visibility by, an algorithm thing and not by anything legit. Like their stories just aren't good enough to survive that update. And so I think that you can never, ever, ever go wrong learning to do your job better. And if your job is telling stories, then, it's not just selling stories. And I think, going back in time, we made a strong argument, in the pre-WPR days, we made the argument that an average writer would never be as great as, or a great writer with subpar marketing skills was never going to be as successful as an average writer with superb marketing skills. And we've seen that that's so true.
It's still true, but I wish it was de-emphasized. Because
yes,
holy shit.
It's even more true than it was, even more true than we expected. But I still think that the people who have the longest term careers are the people who do have the craft down and know enough about marketing.
Well, right. Where's the beef ultimately?
Yeah. So I think craft just matters.
Dave, you were leaning forward for a while. Did you have something you wanted to say before we finish?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should do another craft episode or more craft episodes because I really loved what Jeff said on the last show about how that's going to be the enduring thing for indies, and I love that prediction.
Yeah, we should add to the schedule. I'm finishing up editing Bonnie's book on characters, which won't be out for like maybe a year. Like it's just not on the schedule right now at all. But it's a great book, that we'll use internally, and I'm sure she would love to talk about a lot of that stuff on, in the book. It's just great. It's on character modeling and the questions we ask and how we put characters together, and I think that'd be a great craft episode.
Awesome. Okay, well, so this has been the Story Studio podcast. Thanks, guys, for listening. Our next episode is going to be on tools. That should be kind of fun. And by tools, we just mean people that like Dave thinks are
Is Dave going to sing
assholes.
sober?
I thought we were going to do Tool
sober.
Band.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that too. All right. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace out.